Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Female Voice Zoomcast. I'm Shanice.
And I'm Lauren.
Hey, I'm Neka.
Hi, I'm Takara.
Today we are going to be discussing microaggressions, and this is going to be a two-part discussion. We're going to have our first discussion is going to be on microaggressions, our experience with them, and the second discussion is going to be us discussing on white fragility. So this is the first part of our discussion. So before we get into this discussion, we're going to discuss what is a microaggression. And if you can look at the screen, you can read along with me. All right. So microaggression is a subtle, verbal or nonverbal insult, dignities, or denigrating messages directed toward an individual due to their marginalized identity. They're often committed by well-intended people who are unaware of the hidden messages conveyed or the impact of their statement. So that's what a microaggression is. And I would just describe it as a well-intended thing that people say or do based off of a stereotype they believe about your culture or your subgroup. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. We're gonna go back to regular view and we can start with the first question, okay? So the first question is, have you experienced a anybody in here, has anybody in here experienced microaggressions in the workplace, in general, and in life?
Yep, a whole lot of them. It's very common at work, outside of work. The most recent one I can think of, I was on a flight and I had braids, and the white lady sitting next to me she told me my hair was beautiful and asked, can she touch my braids? And I said, no. And she's like, oh, what? Excuse me? No, you cannot touch my hair. And then she was like, oh, okay. And then in the workplace, I find that I can be assumed, I'm a nurse practitioner, and also when I was working as an RN, I'm assumed to be the tech or a dietary tech or maybe a radiology tech. Even though I have my badge on that says RN or nurse practitioner, they are assuming because I'm Black that I am a tech. All kinds of different things. Sometimes people will tell me that I speak very good English, I'm articulate. Things like, even like a patient's father said to me, and my hair was kind of similar to how it is today. He was like, oh, did you just roll out of bed? You just woke up, or what's going on with your hair? I'm like, coworkers who compliment my hair only when it's straightened. But when it's in a more natural state, they never say anything about my hair. We're like, oh, I love your hair like that when it's straight. So I think those are, I mean, there's many, many more, but those are a few microaggressions I can think of.
Yeah. Anybody else want to tell about their experience?
Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to get my mute off the unmute my mic. I've definitely experienced microaggressions, a lot of similar, many similar to what Neka talked about. You know, oh, you're the nurse, oh, you're the doctor, you know, oh, you know, people are kind of, you know, often, you know, surprised, you know, and I've even had some people say, you know, they were expecting, you know, an old white man. That's what they were expecting. They just did not expect me. Some people actually ended up being delighted by that, and others, you could tell, is still kind of like wrapping their head around it, I guess. When I was in graduate school, I had a professor send me an email asking me how did I write my dissertation, basically. Like, how did I write it so quickly? Who helped me? How much help did I get, and who helped me is basically what she asked me. It was a very long like email, and I replied with like one sentence, maybe two sentences, no more than that. You know, I didn't have any help. I wrote the paper myself. End of story. But I mean, it was a very long email. It's a huge microaggression, but that was a big one when I was in graduate school here in Maryland. definitely resonated with me about the assumptions they make about Black people. I'm not supposed to be as good as, smarter than my white counterparts, but I am. That's all I'm going to say right now.
Yes, yes, yes. Lauren, do you have any?
Well, now that you say that, I'm thinking about when I used to teach in college. There are a lot, and at the time I was maybe 26. And so I think a lot of people were saying like that how can you be the professor because you're young and you're Black? And so a lot of times that would, I did face a lot of microaggressions because of that at that time, because of just people's assumption of like, well, this, are you the student? Are you the classmate? And it's not. Even now at my job, now that I think about it, a lot of us will put like our picture on our emails so you can see like who you're emailing. And I often choose not to do that because often people will have an assumption about me before they're emailing me because they may see my picture. So I'll often just kind of leave that anonymous so that you can't really, you can't discriminate or have preconceived notions. I mean, obviously you could, but these are just things that, I do.
Yeah, awesome. My experience with microaggression started when I was very young, actually. I experienced my first microaggression when I was growing up. And like my family kind of moved around a lot. So I was living in Takara, knows Cleveland. So I was living in Lakewood, which is in West Cleveland, but I would get bused to school to go to school in East Cleveland. And then there was this little white girl in my class. And she lived in my neighborhood. So I would play with her at recess time and I would play with the other kids too. And then she told me one day, she's like 9 years old. Well, you're not like the other Black girls. You're more like me. You're more white. So I was just like, okay. And, being 9-year-old, you don't really know how to take that. But that was my first experience with microaggression. And of course, as you get older, they grow. And being in the field of education, you see them a lot. One thing that happened, because I'm one of the few the few Black people that work at my school, I hear a lot of conversations that people aren't necessarily aware of what they're saying. For instance, we're in a teacher's lounge and someone's brought up negligee. I'm not sure. They were just like, well, yeah, my student, all he wants to do is sit around and eat fried chicken and watermelon, like literally. And I'm like, excuse me, and that's such a stereotypical thing to say. And then, so it's been a lot. And then when I taught before, like Takara, one teacher said to me, one parent actually said to me, where's the old white lady? Expecting her child's teacher to look like an old white lady. And then looking young and having 3 kids, people often assume that I'm not married. I get commented on the store, oh, wow, you got your hands full, don't you? Like when my kids were little. So it was like people are like, I'm married, I have a job, I'm not a single Black mother out here. Yes, I'm out here by myself, but people just assume based off of stereotypes. And so those are some of the things I experienced being in white spaces in the Black world. I mean, not wrong way, being in white spaces in a white world, more so than that. All right, so ladies, that leads us to our second question. Do you think that microaggressions are really unconscious bias, or are they passive aggressive insults? So anybody that wants to take that.
I think it depends on, who it is, where it's coming from. As I was saying before, I've had some patients actually be, ask if I'm the doctor, or, as a nurse practitioner, we're considered a mid-level practitioner and I prescribe medications. And to some people, they are actually like delighted that it's me versus an old white man in a white coat, you know. But I've also had people where I think that they are like, you know, they'll say no offense to you, but I want to see the psychiatrist, or no offense, but I want to see. But it is I mean, it's offensive, but it's not offensive to me in the way of that it damages my ego, or, you know, that it ruins my day. It's kind of like, listen, there's no shortage of patience. So there is somebody waiting right now to take your spot, and I don't care. I'd rather see the people who want to see me anyway. And, you know, I don't know. I do think some things are unconscious and not intentional to be that way. I think some things are, you know, just kind of socialized. Some of it is also some of the narrative that we have perpetuated ourselves in our own community that people, you know, communicate and pick up on. But I think that's a smaller number of people who commit those microaggressions. I think most of them are intentional jabs at us.
Mhm.
And you know, and very intentional to keep us you know, marginalized, even though they may not exactly realize what they're doing or comprehend what they're doing, but they understand that they are causing some sort of damage to us and making those comments, some sort of slight.
Yeah, I think about them the same kind of a way, is that people, they may be in spaces where they may know it's inappropriate to be overtly saying things. And these microaggressions are ways, and I know that you read the definition to say it's unintentional, but at the same time, I do think that people say things in a nice, nasty kind of a way to jab at you, so that it's kind of like, oh, you know, you shouldn't get offended. Why are you so angry about this?
Mhm.
And it's like, because you knew what you did and you said it on purpose in a way to kind of, you know, diminish me in some sort of a way. And I think that, you know, I think that is related to racism. I think we also, as people, can do this to our own people as well. So it's all kinds of little aggression that's really floating around in the world that we put out, we receive it, we spin in it. It's terrible, but it's out there.
Right. Like when you say, oh, she nice looking for a dark girl, you cute for a dark skinned girl.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you just be beautiful? Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, it's so ridiculous. Like you say, how we, you know, basically have self-hate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the microaggressions, people are being passive aggressive, nice, nasty, and doing it on purpose. And I think a lot of times people aren't necessarily fully aware of how biased and ridiculous the things they were saying. Like, I feel like Shanice, the comment about the fried chicken and the watermelon, that is, they know what they're saying there. That's not unintentional.
Yeah.
But I do think that some of them can be unintentional. I know I was in a meeting with colleagues at one point, and we were talking about something, I don't know, there was something in the news that happened in Harlem. And one of the colleagues was saying, oh, the poor people of Harlem, if they only knew better, and life could be so much better, and this, their communities are like this and that. And I asked her, I was like, have you been to Harlem? Because I used to live in Harlem. So what part are you talking about? She's never been there. She doesn't know anything about Harlem, but she's just speaking with her bias, like what she's been programmed with, what Black neighborhoods look like, the poor people, they don't know better, blah, 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 their miserable lives with no joy, let's help them. And I don't think she was necessarily trying to be insulting or mean. She just doesn't know, and she's speaking from her indoctrination.
Right. And I had an experience with someone that actually came to me about something they thought was microaggressions. And because she's learning more about it, she was happy to admit to me that she felt really guilty after she did it. So we have, like I said, we don't have many Black people that work with us. There's about maybe three Black teachers, and we all look different from each other. We do not look the same. But she walked in the parking lot one day and she mistook one of the Black teachers for the other Black teacher. And she felt terrible. So she said, I didn't even think, because she was like, tell me if I did something wrong. You know, I was like, yeah, that is a lot of times when there's not a lot of you, everybody assume that you're just the other Black person. They don't really look at you. So I think a lot of times it could be subconscious, and like if you're aware of it, at least if you're aware that you have implicit bias, you know, at least you can be aware of what you're doing and what you're saying. But it sometimes, like you guys say, it could be more passive aggressive, more like I'm trying to take a jab at you. But some of the time it could just be out of innocence and ignorance. And but yeah, so in that case, she was able to recognize that she was being kind of showing a microaggression. I don't want to call it racist, but you know, so but yeah, she was, you know, she was just applying what everybody else assumes, that, you know, all Black people look alike. And yeah,
The
so
other, excuse me. The other part of that is also just privilege, right? So you have the opportunity to not even think about that because there are not very many Black people in your space. I'm just looking at doing my daily day-to-day, and so they don't have to be as responsive to us as we have to be to them. And I think that's just, that little simple fact is something that you know, is a good point, that we are responsible to know about white culture because it's all around us.
right.
We're responsible to know, you know, that if I come to work with my hair straightened, I'm going to get a certain kind of look, versus if my hair is natural, it's going to, you know, have a different kind of a response. So these are things we have to know and we have to anticipate. Whereas if that's not your world, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, that is terrible, but they don't have to think about it the way that we often do. So
And then I was also going to make a mention that, you know, we are talking a lot about racial microaggressions, but they're, you know, I've definitely felt them just being female in a male dominated space, being the youngest colleague of all the people who are much older than me. And, you know, there was a time where I was working with a physician, a very, very old physician, who, you know, he and I were getting into a little back and forth. And you know, he responds that I'm too junior to address him in the way that I do, but I'm giving him the same energy he's giving me, right? So I think that it can happen that way. It can happen with Americans being biased towards foreigners. Like I've felt it on many different levels, not only race, but there's all kinds of different microaggressions that can go on.
All right, ladies, this leads us to our third question. How should we respond to microaggressions? What should be the response if we experience them? And then, because I'm going to say this with the point of, because a lot of times, without getting, like, a lot of times people would, if we get angry about it, then we automatically are the angry Black woman or the angry Black men. So how should we respond to it? Not saying that anger is wrong, because you can be angry about it and respond that way, that's fine. But then that's also playing into another stereotype. So how can we respond to it? And my thing is, why is that a stereotype? Why do we have to hide our emotions if we're upset about something? You know, so go ahead and you guys can answer that question in any order you want.
So my thoughts on it is that if I'm going to be uncomfortable, we are all going to be uncomfortable in this here space, right? So I'm not letting these things fly. But in the professional setting, I will be very professional when I respond to you. I think sometimes asking questions can help people realize how ignorant some of the things they're saying are. Like, you know, there was somebody who had asked me before about how they're like, oh, you went to Johns Hopkins. That's a very good school. Wow, I'm impressed. How did you get in there? I mean, how does anybody get into school the same way you got into school? Like, how did you get into your graduate program? And then they're like, oh, you know, I didn't mean it like that. But sometimes you have to just turn it back around on them, not necessarily being aggressive or nasty, but sometimes asking clarifying questions, repeating back what they've said to you so they can hear themselves. I
Mhm.
think that can be helpful. Sometimes when things are getting a little bit more, I guess, aggressive, more overt, more uncomfortable. I think if you were in the workplace, going to your boss, if there's somebody you can go to, or going to HR, I have no problem going to HR. I
Mhm.
love HR and the protections that it can provide. I think sometimes people don't want to make a stink, but I'm here for the stink. And I think sometimes you have to deal with people in the way that they will deal with you. And I feel like Black people as a whole, I feel like a lot of times we don't necessarily want to play into that. And sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. I did see a study showing that people who experience microaggressions feel better, feel about the outcome, feel more content when they do address it rather than
Mhm.
ignoring it. So I think it is a good idea for people to address those things and not just let them be unsaid and then you go home uncomfortable and having these upset feelings that never get
Mhm.
expressed. And then you eat a pint of ice cream and have a glass of wine.
Okay. Anybody else? How do you respond or address microaggressions?
Well, I mean, I think I, said earlier with the long email that I got from my professor in the past, I, replied with, I mean, even though she had a very long email, the way I looked at it is there was one question and or two questions. So I responded with two sentences and I just chose to ignore, everything else. But that was also a situation where where I was very close to a degree. Like it was, I would be graduating in a matter of months. And she was also in a position of like higher authority. Not that I was threatened by that, because I mean, I could just show the email and say, I wrote my paper, and I'm sure that they have programs to see that I did not plagiarize. So there's
Mhm.
no action really that they can be taken against me. So, in responding, it was like, listen, woman, I just want to, I want my degree and I don't really have time to entertain this. So, I kept my eye on the prize. And now that I think back on it, I never talked to her about that, because actually she ended up giving me a adjunct professor position at Hopkins years later, and has asked me to like, do like little mini lectures and things of that nature, like taking nurse practitioner students, for her postdoctoral track that she runs at Hopkins. And so we developed this relationship over the years. But it's interesting because I think for her, it may have been that I almost had to like prove myself, even though I had been a student at this school for, 3 years almost, to graduate. But I there's probably an opportunity for us to maybe, discuss that past event at this point and maybe, give her some insight, help her to gain insight and help her to, learn about that, about, the experience, how it, translated to me, what my experience was getting that email from her. And then maybe for her to unlearn those behaviors of, stereotypes and assumptions. Yeah, and I like what Nika said about if I'm gonna be uncomfortable, everybody gonna be uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And I've had other experiences. I remember I told getting my patients out the lobby. I told the other psychiatrist I work with that his patient was out there. He was like, well, can you bring him back? And I was like, no. And I just left it at that and went back to my office. I didn't say anything else. And I mean, he'll figure it out. You go get your own patients, and I'm not the front desk staff. I mean, I could have, maybe extended, our interaction. But yeah, I'm not shy about, speaking my piece and saying like, but maybe I could start using language like, I think that might have been a microaggression. What do you think about that?
I like that.
Just to like open up the conversation. So, come on, it's time to learn. This is the time.
I think this is a important point about representation as well, because a lot of times the challenge that we have is that when we kind of complain about things, then it can often go to somebody up higher that is kind of like, oh, so and so is just being, you know, whatever, and they are dismissive of us.
Mhm.
So I think this is a excellent opportunity to kind of display why we need to be in all avenues of all different fields of employment and a variety of different avenues, because I think often what happens is that it's like it's taken seriously in some cases, or they'll just say, oh, you know how so and so is, and that's not appropriate either. So it's a lot of work. I mean, I think the word is microaggression, so it's aggressive in some way, you know, however, if you meant it to be or if you didn't mean it to be. So that's also something to think about. But I think for me, I faced a lot of it because of my age. And that's where I felt it the most significantly, you know, because of my, I mean, now I'm not as young as I used to be. But in the past, I was kind of like, man, everybody is treating me like I don't know what I'm talking about. And I feel like I do. So, you know, these are things I always had to combat. So.
Yeah. And I agree with a lot of you with the asking the question, bringing it back to them, making them aware of it first. Like they said, it could be subconscious and they could be unaware of what they're doing. And so I like what I think Neka, did you say, no, say repeated it back to them?
Mhm.
So I like what she said like that, because I think that's a good way to respond so they can hear what they're saying to you. Another thing that I do, because at first I'm slow to react because of the initial shock. Sometimes like, really, did you really just say that? So if I do get a chance to confront that person again, I try to make sure I was like, I'll just let them know, like the person that we had a discussion about the fried chicken and watermelon. Now every time she sees me, she's learning something about Black people. So, but we did have a conversation about how that was inappropriate, how those are stereotypes, and that, you know, you should not have. First, I'm not sure why you felt comfortable saying that in my presence. And then second, just realize what you said, those are stereotypes that were said about Black people a long time ago, and you kind of just reinforce that racism. And then she was, you know, she took it kind of like, oh, I didn't know that. I think she knew. But anyway, but now every time I see her, oh, you bring so much of a multicultural aspect to our school. Oh, I'm going to see this performance. I'm reading this book. You know, now she's like, I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to grow. But I think having that initial conversation with her about it, instead of letting her kind of get away with it, she's more aware of what she says and what she does. And I'm hoping that she's more aware of how she's projecting herself to, not projecting those stereotypes to her students. I see some faces.
When you speak about her coming to you with all those things she's doing, it feels a little performative. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not racist. Don't, you know.
Yeah, it sounds like microaggressions.
Yeah, fakeness, but yeah, no.
Yeah.
Right.
But then I did have a conversation to her about her background. She did grow up in an all-white environment. Her initial school, she taught for like 15 years at an all-white school that was very racist. Like they're like in the Ku Klux Klan area of our county. So she's come a long way. Just the fact that she's approaching me and trying to learn more about Black people, but I don't want her to feel like I'm the Black judge, like, okay, now you're a good white person. Cause that's what I feel like she's trying to do. Now you made it, you crossed over, but that's what I feel like she's trying to do. But yeah, so yeah, I see her daily and that's what she does every time she sees me. So I don't know if I should bring it up to her, like, I'm not your judge. You don't have to tell me all of this.
You know, sometimes it's like, do you bring those things up? I know there was a time, at a previous job, I had a white male coworker, and every time he would come in the office and he saw me, he would be, singing rap lyrics. And it's only when I'm around. Any other time he doesn't come in that way, and it's like I kind of struggle. It's like, what am I gonna say to this? Because it's very annoying, and I know what's happening here. But one day I did just tell him, hey, I noticed that you are always singing these rap lyrics every time you see me. And then when you don't see me around the corner, you know, you don't come in singing that. I'm like, when I start seeing you, I'm gonna come in singing Green Day every time. And let's see how that sits with you. And he was like, oh no, we laughed about it. And then he cut all that crap out. But you know, I think addressing it is good no matter how uncomfortable it can be.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, they'll try to sway the other way as a response, but it's good for them to get the lesson. And
I can tell her, yeah, you can say, hey, how are you? We can have a normal conversation.
right.
Yeah.
It's like I was telling Shanice before Juneteenth was passed as a holiday. My coworker was trying to tell me that she knew like what it was, and she was like, "Happy Juneteenth, Lauren." And at the time, I was just kind of like, like, this is not something I want you to be saying Happy Juneteenth to me about. So I don't know. I mean, now that it's like an official holiday, maybe I'll feel different about it. But at the time, it seemed just kind of like what Shanice was saying. Like, I want to show you that I know something, but if you consider the history of Juneteenth, I don't know. I guess I have to wrap my head around that.
I mean, it might, I think, to, you know, I could make a, you know, more of an effort, you know, do a better job of also microaggressions in our own community, because the colorism thing is a big problem.
Yeah.
You know, with the whole light skin, dark skin thing, which is something that came from colonizers that basically we have now been socialized to, you know, assign value, you know, within our own community, which is really not, you know, a good thing. And we've been, I mean, I could think about that as a child, you know, like, I mean, it's something that's been going on within our community for ages. And, you know, maybe we can use those as opportunities to say, you know, find an alternative, or why don't we just normalize that, you know, we all have different shades of skin and, you know, different body shapes, and we all beautiful, not just you beautiful for being a dark-skinned woman. Or, you know, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was going to bring that point up too. I'm glad you just mentioned it, that sometimes those microaggressions can come within your racial group as well. Like, I think about there was a fellow classmate that I went to school with who was telling me that there's no way I could be 100% Nigerian, and she insisted I don't look Nigerian. And I'm like, well, how do Nigerians look? And then it's like, she can't answer that question. It's like, oh, stutter. And then she ended up saying that I would be darker and my nose would be bigger if I was 100% Nigerian. And this is a Black person now. I'm just like, okay. Like, some of the stuff is just very, very ridiculous. And it's really surprising when it comes from your own community. Working in healthcare, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, Takara. There was, I came in to treat somebody's child, and this is a Black family, Black mom, Black son. And the mom says she prefers to not have Black people treat her son. I'm like, oh, all right. I mean, I don't know. That's probably not a microaggression. That's like bias. And
Yeah.
but you know, sometimes those things do come from within the community as well.
So how do we address them when they come from our own people? Do we call them out like we do for like we said we would do for white people or other people? How would you guys suggest we address them within our own community?
Same way.
Yep, same way. Exactly the same way.
Same energy.
But I will say that instance at work, I just was like, okay, bye.
Right.
But you don't want to,
it's exhausting, you know, to be constantly, I mean, gosh, it's exhausting being in America. And, you know, it's already exhausting to be, you know, Black and dealing with racism. And then now you got to, you know, from white people, let alone and within your own community, it's just like, sometimes it's like, I don't have the bandwidth today. Like, I just don't have the space or the energy to deal with this today. So I'm choosing not to, like I'm not miserable. You can go home and be miserable, because it take a miserable person, as far as I'm concerned, to go around, and just causing misery and harm and, just wanting to make people feel less than. Like, what are you getting from tearing other people down? How can that make you feel good? It shouldn't, help you to, elevate yourself. And I feel like that is kind of, what, white America's goal has been, is just to stay on top and suppress everybody else at whatever, any means necessary. It's just, and it's exhausting to always be going up against it. So I could hear you, I understand that, 'cause like every action doesn't require a reaction. And sometimes it's just like, like today, I'm just choosing to let that one go, because I just don't have time for this.
Right. And what actually ended up happening, I was the only provider on. This is when I worked in urgent care. So she was going to have to go to the emergency room. And then she got upset because I was like, okay, bye, I'm not going to see her. But it's like, this is what you asked for. I'm giving you what you asked for, ma'am. That's all.
So, I mean, did she go to the emergency room, or what did she do?
Left. She left. She demanded to see me, but then I wasn't interested, and I was on to the next patients, and she ended up leaving.
Yeah. I've seen like people do, I don't want to shop at Black businesses, because of a certain stereotype that Black businesses have. And I'm like, not every Black business is the same, for one. You never know what you're gonna get. So and we need to support our own within our own. So it's like, oh, the Black person is doing it. I've seen people that have those attitudes like towards Black businesses. And I was like, that's not helping our community at all. That is definitely not helping our community at all. So I think we too need to be aware of our microaggressions and realizing a lot of times it doesn't come from us. Like Takara said, we are more powerful as a unit. And if they can do anything to separate us, they will. So they'll tell us light skin is better than dark skin. They'll tell us that, different things that separate us, like thick is better than skinny. Like they'll tell us like different things about each other so that we can remain divided. Having straight hair is better than having natural hair. It's like, so different things like that so that we can be divided. And as long as we're divisive against each other, we still got, we're not going to be able to be a unified, powerful group. And that's what we want to do. We want to be a unified, powerful group. So I think it's important to address it especially when it happens within our own community, because we need to stop the divisiveness so we can come together. There's already enough on our backs as it is. We don't need each other on our backs as well.
Right.
All right. Does anybody have anything else they want to add to this before we close it out? Any final words? All right, looks like we're all out of words. All right. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Shout out to the Black Advancement. And of course, as always, shout out to NECA's Waist Beads. Make sure you check them out on Instagram. And also, I just started following Takara on Instagram. Go ahead and shout your
Yes, I run a mental health page for the BIPOC community. And, definitely it's primarily focused on, how mental health and mental illness affects the Black community. It is at the Black BLK Psych and PSYCHMP on Instagram. Thank you.
All right, well, check out the other Black Advancements shows. They got Hollywood, they got the Beautiful Struggle. I think all of us are participating in that one too. They have, definitely a lot of shows. Synopsis, check them all out. And we enjoyed having you with us, and have a good day. We're out, and peace.
Bye.
Did y'all go like